Any kind of white armour in Warhammer seems like it's going to be a heavy task, especially if you want it clean looking. But what if I told you that painting white armour is made much easier by remembering this simple phrase: basic is best. When I'm painting something that's a little bit trickier than usual, I try to simplify it as much as I can. When it came to painting the apothecary, I knew that if I started overthinking it, I'm going to mess it up. After base spraying the model with a grey primer that I used from Halford's, I then spray it with some Corax White. Now, unknown to me at the time that Corax White is actually discontinued now, but the other option is to spray it with White Scar and add a couple of thin layers of Corax White on it. With the white base colour sorted, I'm going to come back to it later on and start getting the other base coats on, starting with the tabard, and I wanted to keep it an earthy colour to fit the theme of the base, so I used Baneblade Brown as the base colour. Next up was the left shoulder pad, and I originally was going to have this red, kinda like a medic colour, but I thought it would fit much better with the army if I just went with McCraig Blue instead. I wanted a lighter gold on the gold parts, so I based his chest, shoulder and skull pieces with Liberator Gold. The silver parts like the gun, cables, the arms on the backpack and a few smaller parts were painted with Lead Belcher. For the under armour, the gun and its holster, I went with Corvus Black. There's a few small red parts, so I used Mephiston Red to paint them up. I usually leave the base until the very end, but I'm starting it now because it's going to make the cleanup on the white much easier. I base the edges with Sterling Mud and then add some Agrellan Earth onto the top parts. With everything dry, I go over any mistakes on the white, and I did a pretty good job this time and keeping it mostly clean. There was only a few parts that I needed to clean up. To kick off the shading, I go back to the tabard and I shade it down with some Airgrax Earthshade. And next is the blue shoulder pad, and this is just classic me, not taking my own advice. For some reason, I took some Drakenhof Nightshade and I just shaded over the whole area. It came out all patchy looking, so I'll come back later on and shade it better. Reichland Flesh Shade is a great shade for Liberator Gold, because it gives this nice goldish finish that doesn't really darken it a whole lot. For the silver, of course I had to be Nuln Oil, but on the arms coming out of the backpack, I give them 2 shades just to darken them a bit more from the rest. For the red parts, I shade them in with Carbug Crimson. Moving on to the base, and I'm using the same colours as I did with my previous Leviathan Marines, and I start off with XV88 and then shade it down with Seraphim Sepia. Before I start highlighting, I go back to the blue shoulder pad and paint it again with McCraig Blue, and then I use Drakenhof Nightshade, but this time only in the edges along the inside. Sorted. The final phase is here, and I start by highlighting the tabard and the parchment with Zandri Dust. All the silver and gold parts were then highlighted with Stormhole Silver. I picked out Eshin Grey to highlight the black parts just to see what it would turn out like. It turned out okay on the gun, but on the gun holster not so much. Maybe I'll stick to Dawnstone next time. I was just about able to add some red highlights onto the tiny red parts with Evil Sun Scarlet. To finish off the base, I dry brush XV88 back on and then followed with another dry brush of Ushabti Bone. For the spotlight, I went over it with some Imperial Yellow. For the screen on his arm and on the lenses, I used Beeltan Green tinned down with Lamb Medium. And for the glass and the canister, I took some Tesseract Glow to see if it would give it a poison nuclear look. It's time now to finish the most important part of the model, the white armour. I'm so happy I left this part until last, because it's going to tie the whole model together. Shading white can be tricky, but I find that using Farnesian Grey with some Lamb Medium into the recesses adds a pale blue look that really works well with Corax White. It's a bit tedious doing it this way, and you might have to do thin layers, but when I stepped back and looked at it, it was working great. The very final part then is to highlight all the white edges with White Scar. There are lots of different ways to paint white, and it can get very detailed and complicated, but if you're like me and just want a simple way to paint white, then I think I've done just that. Once broken down to a basic way of painting, I had no problem painting this apothecary, and I hope you won't either, whether it's your own apothecary, white scars, or any other model. Going the basic way worked perfectly for this guy. But if you guys like this video and I helped you out, make sure to let me know in the comment section below, hit the like button, and once again, thanks for watching.